Indiana Jones, Indiana It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute. This is the podcast where we check out the film Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull 1 minute at a time. Check out. That was a library joke.
I was wondering.
Yeah. Thank you, Pete. I'm Tom Taylor.
I'm Pete Mummert.
I'm the intern, Gerald Crystal Skull Marcus Porter.
And I'm Ken Plume.
Hey.
Welcome, Ken Plume.
How was that?
Hey.
That was my Indiana Jones
good.
Minute voice.
That was
Yeah.
nice. I almost didn't recognize
Oh,
it.
is it? Yeah, does it has a little pluck.
Yeah. I wanted to bring
Little
some
snap at the
energy.
end.
Yeah.
Some of the
Plume.
energy the movie was missing, I wanted to bring to the podcast.
Actual enthusiasm. I
A
like
little
it.
bit of that pluck.
All right. Well, Ken, you are here to help us discuss minute 37 of this movie. And minute 37 begins with Mutt and Indy driving the motorcycle into the library, and it ends with them back at Indy's house with Mutt asking, "Who is that?"
You know, I love at second 2, as Mutt and Indy ride away on the Harley, Indy whoops out his famous horse, "Yeah!"
Is that him? I heard something like that.
Yeah, he does.
I didn't hear that.
He totally did. Yeah, he does. They ride away on the motorcycle, and I see he goes, "Yeah!" And I think he thinks he's riding Mutt.
Maybe.
I mean, that's a context that I think you brought to this.
I think. Well,
We do a lot of
I think because it's kind of one of those like, it's like I think we said a few days ago. Okay, now the adventure has begun, and I think that's why that Indy lets out that outburst is because he's feeling it. He's feeling it. He's like, I remember this.
He's feeling it because he just passed the indie cosplay guy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Maybe he's like yelling it to that guy. Like, yeah, you got it.
yeah.
Right on.
Nailed
Nice
it.
outfit.
This guy knows.
I think he's just excited for a day out. I mean, he's getting up in years. He doesn't get out much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It beats a, 17-hour plane to London and Germany that he had planned for himself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look. He's. I think we said that if this is 1957, is it 58 years old? So,
Yeah.
I mean, look, you don't know how many yas he has left in him.
Yeah, he should be conserving those.
Get your
Yeah.
yas when you can.
Well, we know how many yas he has left in him because he gets really old and wears that eye patch.
Aw,
And I'll
Pete.
clobber you.
Pete had a
Ah.
nightmare that we saw an old man Indiana Jones on TV or something, and he keeps making us want to believe
Yeah.
it. It's awful.
we got Ken here, and he's trying to keep it pluckish.
Yeah.
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 Very pluckish.
What's this pluckish like a 98-year-old man sliding down a banister, Jer?
That is rather pluckish.
The fact that we shortly before this saw Indy teaching again briefly until being let go. I kind of want to follow the adventures of his substitute teacher
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
because he's gone so
Yeah.
often and somebody's having to pick up the lesson plan always for him because he basically comes back, it seems, to teach a single day.
Yeah. We talked about this. They never get past Michelson 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Right.
And he never even gets through the single day. Like, he always gets called out in the middle of the class. Like, he teaches half a class.
I want to see Michelson come in and do a guest lecture.
Yeah.
This will just be easier if I come in and just recite my book to you guys. It'll go quicker and you'll actually graduate.
I actually brought in Michelson to talk to you. I'll be back.
maybe that's where Short Round comes in. We always talk
yeah.
about this. Like Shorty makes it to America, and he's under Indy's tutelage. He becomes an archaeologist, and through nepotism, Indy gets him a job at Marshall, and maybe that's who takes over.
I mean, maybe it's not nepotism. Let's give him some credit. Maybe he's actually a genuinely good teacher who's dedicated to teaching,
Yeah.
unlike Indy.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
And then he gets up there and he's like, I hate that guy. My best friend was an elephant.
I was going to say his best friend's an elephant.
Maybe
Yeah,
he brought the elephant with him. You don't know that. We don't know what happened after that movie.
This is shaping up to be a good story to follow. You're right, Ken.
What is the Marshall mascot?
Don't we see it somewhere, maybe?
I figured it was just a walk around Marcus, isn't it? Is it just a giant, big-headed walk around Marcus that just cheers on the games and falls down a lot?
Just
sort of bumbles his way.
Yeah.
Like the mascot. That's what he was in Last Crusade.
Probably like the Marshall mummies.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So the Marshall Marcus is a no-go?
The Marshall Marcus, well, the Marshall.
We're almost
mummified.
there. We're almost to the point where where Marcus is just a big-headed, guy in a suit.
I love that Jerry wrote down Marshall mummies in his notes.
This is going to kill.
Set it up. He even set it up. What do you think their mascot is, guys?
Because I know.
I hope the minute goes this way. I hope the minute goes this way.
Making somebody's dreams come true. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing to go back and revisit this film, which I have to be honest, I haven't done basically, I think, since it came out on home video.
Yeah. You're not alone.
It's one of those that, and I'm sure you've had this conversation numerous times with numerous guests.
But not with you.
I can't imagine that you haven't. That every once in a while, I'll think about, I should maybe give it another chance. I've seen a lot. I've seen Suicide Squad. I've had that in my life. Maybe it's not so bad to go back and watch this. But life's too short, and I just avoided it. It's kind of been sitting there staring at me. So I kind of, I both love hate that you made me have a reason to go back and revisit it, because it is every bit the awkward experience that I remember it being sitting through it in the theater.
So when you saw this in the theater, were you? I mean, you were aware, like minute by minute or scene by scene, that this wasn't shaping up to be coherent.
I mean, it pretty much laid out its case for being regrettable right from the start. I mean, that
was it.
That's not the opening of the film. I've come to a bit of an epiphany in watching it again, because I had a conversation about Last Crusade a few weeks back, and the tonal shift. And I talked with you guys about Last Crusade when you covered that.
Yeah.
In how I think Last Crusade, and particularly this, is closer in tone and spirit to the Mummy films than it is to the first two Indiana Jones films.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we just talked about the Mummy on our Patreon, and so we did a nice dive into that, and we did do some comparisons on that. And so why do you think that? Why do you say that? Is it
particularly watching this minute really drives home that there's a divorce from reality. That there's a grounded aspect, no matter how fantastical you get in Raiders or even Temple of Doom, there is sort of a natural human reaction to things, and sort of a basic appreciation of physics within the universe.
Yeah, for the most
and
part.
there wasn't such a feeling of desperation when it comes to gag. Rather than the gags being a little bit of spice or an accent in the first two films, this just seems like everything needs to be a quip or a gag.
Yeah.
Right.
So when they get into the library and you have a motorcycle with one of your professors riding through, and you get to the slide under the table after the gag about, slow down, you're going too fast, quiet old man, whatever the heck that line is.
That's a matter of opinion.
Yeah, which is a rejoinder.
Of sorts.
Also, I don't think Mutt's very good at driving a motorcycle.
Yeah.
And they slide under, and they come across the student whose only reaction in that moment to this scene of chaos and a motorcycle in the library and being chased down, and is to ask the professor a question about class. And for Indy to give a quip in response to that, just you can't invest in this. At that point, you're going, it's a Chuck Jones cartoon. Okay, it's now he's the Roadrunner, and the coyotes are chasing him all around the campus. What's the gag that's going to be out of here?
There's something about that I find less offensive than like the stamp gag in the last library and Last Crusade. Like there's something, they're going for something slightly more, I can't say intellectual, but it's like a different kind of gag. It's a slightly elevated comedic moment and not just a gag. Sort of like just the situation of like, oh, hi, professor, you're under the table on a motorcycle. I got a question for you about my homework. There's a little more.
But you're trying to make one or the other okay. Which I'm saying,
if you have to choose, maybe that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I think something like that stamp gag sort of set the tone for, this is what Indiana Jones is now. For when, whenever they were developing, when, David Koepp was writing the screenplay, that's going to be what he focuses on. Like, there's got to be a quip. There's got to be a gag. There's got to be this boom, boom, boom all along where, it's sort of like comparing Ghostbusters to Ghostbusters 2.
Mm-hmm.
Ghostbusters was, in a lot of its ways, its attempt to be sort of a supernatural horror movie. Not like, gore slasher horror movie, but, it had a tone to it with humor as an accent.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones traditionally had adventure and action with humor as an accent. If there's nothing that 1941 proved, it's that comedy is not Spielberg's strong point either.
I see. This is something that's really more like an overarching thing in the Indiana Jones franchise. That this is our fourth season here, and we've discussed this quite a bit, and I agree with you. It's there's the current of the films has changed, or the timbre, the color, that sort of thing, and we talked about that Raiders being gritty and dark, and then certainly like Temple of Doom is dizzying because it gets very, it's really dark and then it gets really kind of over the top, ridiculous. And then Last Crusade kind of settled into like a family adventure.
A romp.
A romp, exactly. And it still had a few little bits of jarring violence here and there, like after they go through the tunnel and the plane goes through the tunnel, the plane explodes and the pilot's head rolls out towards the foreground.
If you want.
And then
but prior to that, you had a gag of the pilot looking at them in the car that's somehow unharmed going through that narrow tunnel.
Right. And then now this, clearly, you're right. It's the current of what Indiana Jones is now this type of sort of fun-filled adventure, like
the Mummy
for
film.
the whole family.
Yeah.
Like
It's like Indiana Jones light. Except that now this is the norm. This is the norm.
I think if you accept that, because it is, and unfortunately we can't change that, I think this is actually a pretty good scene. Like if you accept that this is what we're watching, I think this all works pretty well.
Romper Room.
Yeah.
It's an excellent episode of Romper Room.
What's funny is that I don't know. I kind of enjoy like some of this libraries for whatever reason. I don't want to say I like. I like this whole little comedic thing that you bring up at the end.
You don't need to walk it back. You can. I'm not going to. No one's going to attack you over this.
I mean, I find it less. I find it less offensive, as Tommy said. Yeah, I find it for whatever reason. He comes out and he explains about the normative culture and all that. I don't know. I find it less offensive than a lot of the other scenes and minutes and stuff in the movie. I don't know why that is. I mean, we're kind of jumping to the very end here.
Right. Also, not a glowing endorsement of this scene that you've slowly devolved this argument into.
But I mean, we get a moment before that where we got the guy that gives the Wilhelm scream and throws his books in the air.
Yeah, which if you're gonna work in a non-traditional use of the Wilhelm scream, through a very subtle sound mixing to drop off the end of the scream, so you don't quite, you have that moment where, is that what I heard?
Yeah,
right. Well, I need to check with my my weather vane here, sort of which way this blows. Tommy, what do you think about this massive Wilhelm scream?
I am not a fan. I do not like this personalized Wilhelm. I could be wrong, but I don't think we ever in any of the other movies, or even like in Star Wars or anything else,
knew who was delivering it.
Yeah, you don't get. I mean, you might that guy back there, he was flying through the air because the thing exploded, but you don't get like a vocalization of the Wilhelm. You don't see a person making the Wilhelm scream.
Well, I think that's the magic of it, though, Tom. He's doing something new with the Wilhelm, like
young Tommy Wilhelm.
Yeah. I don't know if he needed to do something new with it, though. I don't know. It's weird. It's like, oh, that's the guy who screams just like that. Like every time we heard that scream, it was this college kid from.
But it's kind of a classic Spielberg moment. Like he does a lot of that where he throws in just a quick, funny, like, oh, this guy, T-Rex.
Yeah. Well, okay. Wait. Let's unpack this a little bit here. First,
almost like that's what this show's about.
Yeah, we're gonna spend 15 minutes on a screen.
I mean, first it looks like the nerd goes. If you watch him, like in his jaw and how he does it, it looks like it's a one-note scream. Like he goes ah,
yeah,
but it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't look like his mouth would make that classic Wilhelm glissando. And Pete, I'm looking at you. Because I know you took David Baker's, history of blues class. That's the word of the day. Do you remember what the glissando is?
Yeah, it's like where you go up and down through a scale, like smoothly, right?
Yes, it's a rapid sliding up or down of a musical scale, and it's weird
remember
because
stuff you learned in college. That's crazy.
Well, Pete was the guy holding up all the books in the library.
It's funny though, because in movies like. We like in real life, that guy's just trying to get an education, but in movies, we look at that guy and we hope he gets hit. Like it's funny how he becomes like a bad guy, kind of like he's like, I hope that guy gets his.
You know what? That thought never crossed my mind. I'm kind of disturbed that was. I hope he gets hit. Nerd.
That Ken's reading a book right now. He's one of those.
Here's the thing. What is it like that? That is definitely. A designed moment here, and that guy sticks out from everybody else because he has a stack of books. He's clearly like bookish and nerdy, and so I'm saying, does that make the scream and his impending demise more satisfying if he's a nerd?
So now you've killed him.
Yeah.
They veer to the right.
The Wilhelm to that. Like the only reason you put the Wilhelm in anywhere is as a little, like only the people who recognize it are even going to notice it. So you don't apply it to a guy in a way that's going to be jarring.
So is it your belief going into this scene, filming it, or whatever prep there was, that Spielberg intended that to be where the Wilhelm scream or a Wilhelm scream would be? Or this was a discussion in post where the sound editor went, this would be a really fun place to put the Wilhelm scream. He's yelling anyway.
I would think it'd be more like that. Yeah.
I think it was intentional because what are you going to have that guy do that's funny? I don't think there's anything you're going to have that guy do that's actually.
He is a nerd, so isn't that inherently?
Whereas the Wilhelm makes it funny.
But that's my point. It's making the guy a nerd somehow makes that scream or him. He's like one of the only guys I think who's sort of targeted for getting run over, actually, or like being in this really dangerous situation. And the fact that he's a nerd. I don't know.
So focused on his books because of a nerd that he's not noticing, like everyone else, that a motorcycle is barreling through the library until almost the last moment when the motorcycle is upon him. This loud vehicle in a quiet library that is being filled by dozens of people quickly and noisily getting out of the way. He doesn't notice until nearly the last moment because he has a stack of books.
Nerds have a column in books in front of their face at all times, so they can't see.
But
and he's
what's
just
happening in front of them.
His mind is drifting off to the latest issue of Sci-Fi Quarterly that's waiting back at the dorm for him.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the theme of this whole minute is we've moved away from Indy being a cerebral guy into, okay, this is not at all like Indy's telling people to get out of the library. Like this is Indy's just like, we're just gonna wing it and have fun. There's no more studying. There's no more, which I don't care for in an Indiana Jones movie, but that seems like the direction they decided to go with the movie, and that seems like everything in this minute points to.
Now, what does that line remind me of, Pete and Jerry? I've said it over and over again. I keep referencing this movie during this movie for some reason. When he tells everybody to get out of the library if they want to be archaeologists, it's exactly like Star Trek 2. Because in Star Trek 2, Bones gives Kirk the exact opposite advice that he gave him in Star Trek The Motion Picture about getting back control of the Enterprise. And here, Indy is giving the exact opposite advice to the students that he did in Last Crusade, where he said 70% of all archaeology is in the library. And don't think you're going to be traipsing around the world having adventures. That's not what archaeology is. So it's weird that he...
But doesn't Indy represent 70% of archaeology, and he is in the library right now?
Maybe it's weird. That's Indiana Jones from 23 years ago or something like that.
When he cared.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this: like when Mutt says split,
Yeah.
like is he using 50s lingo? And he's telling all those people to leave, or is he telling them to actually like split the queue and move to one side?
I think later we'll see that he's all about using the lingo in every possible moment to be rooted in place to that era. So I'm thinking it's an intentional use of lingo, Daddy-O.
Yeah. He's just saying. So he's basically saying, get the hell out of here.
Yeah,
I don't think he says
out of here,
Daddy-O in this movie, does he?
He
does.
He
say Daddy-O?
We'll get to
he
that.
does at
He
one
does.
point, doesn't he? Yeah.
At least he doesn't say make like a banana and split.
The audio, you know what? The audio editing is really, really. Did you guys know that? If you watch it, at least on what I have here, the version I have, like his last one or two splits are way off. And it almost looks like
Do you mean like
you
off
just
with
saw
the
that
picture? You mean?
Yeah,
Well,
off
editing,
with the picture. The
whole
yeah,
editing in this minute's off because you've also got this professor who's walking quietly, and he doesn't notice them. And then there's this in the next scene he's running, and then in the next scene he's walking again like he doesn't notice them. I think they had some trouble editing this.
You know what it looks like? It
I
looks
think
like
so.
Indy is a bad ventriloquist. And it's like
This is more a comment on Mutt again, I think.
Yeah. So, Mutt, what do you think these students should do? I think they should split.
Yeah, exactly.
But Mutt,
he's
you're
got
driving
his
too
arm
fast.
up, Mutt, like he's behind Mutt, and Mutt is like sitting on his knee on the motorcycle, and the split is way off. Mutt's
So as
just
soon
his
as
dummy.
Indy falls off in the slide, that's why Mutt stops talking.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's just a dummy.
exactly. I actually love that slide, and I wonder, like, I'm wondering if like when they slide under the table and they're slightly separated, like there's a motorcycle and Mutt, and then like a foot or two behind is Indy, and I'm wondering, do you think like it's like when he's slide under there, Mutt lubricates and facilitates the slide because he's a greaser?
Yep.
Like,
That's what greasers
and
do.
I just wanted Pete to laugh. That's all it was. Pete
It's
like
it's
Indy
good
just
thing you
like,
bring stuff that's just for you into every episode.
Indy
enough for
just
everyone.
it's like he slides on a trail of Mutt's coke and lard cake.
You know what? You could have written this movie.
Yeah. You
It's
got
funny
the
though,
pulse.
we get a Mutt moment where as soon as they slide, he grins back at his dad like he's looking for approval again.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he just completely
Yeah.
doesn't pay attention.
He's had a good slide,
He's having
Dad.
fun.
He's had a good
Yeah.
slide.
Look what I did. I almost killed that nerd.
Hey, Pops.
I do wish
Yeah.
just to yeah.
But he doesn't know yet. So we're actually projecting the whole Pop's daddy was that
is
good.
true. Hey, speaking of father and son and sharing things, does anyone notice that both Mutt and his dad, as they enter the library, they both check out Susie Cute Skirt there at that table?
I
They
did
both
see
look
that.
over to the side
wow, yeah.
at Susie Cute Skirt.
Yeah, but if you
Yeah.
notice, Indy doesn't look until Mutt looks.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, the
It still
apple doesn't
counts.
fall from the tree.
Well,
The
I
tree
mean,
doesn't
it's-
fall
oh, good
far
job,
from the
son.
apple in this case.
Yeah.
All apples.
And I know Tom hates it and Ken hates it, but I actually really like this. The kid politely raising his hand and asking the question.
Wait, I thought I said I liked it.
Oh, maybe.
You know
I'm
what?
just saying
I
that
kind of, I mean, I like it too. I mean, it's all relative. I
Yeah.
think is what we're talking. It's
If-
all
if,
relative.
Yeah.
If you're committing to
Yeah.
this just being a goofy romp,
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes.
then yeah, if one of the Zucker brothers had decided to make an Indiana Jones film,
Yeah.
then yes, that gag is a gag.
Yeah.
Is that an endorsement? Is that enough of an endorsement
I'm
of
just
it?
trying to think about, I'm trying to think, we always compare this to Raiders, obviously. So, if that happened in Raiders or something like it happened in Raiders, you'd kind of start throwing stuff. You'd be like, oh, come on. I was watching a cool movie, and now this kind of dumb, nonsense thing happened. And like you said, there's a problem with, just reality in this movie, and kind of in with Last Crusade, too. Just kind of, they're leaning on that end of it, this will be a fun thing where goofy stuff happens, goofy quote unquote fun stuff happens.
Mhm.
And so since there's so much of that in this movie, and I would argue there's a lot of it in Last Crusade too, having this unrealistic but not I don't know, it is stupid, but I feel like it's less stupid than other stuff, and it's kind of it's like the smart version of stupid or something. It's just kind of in another movie, it'd be very funny.
But how much of that is just because you have an attachment to this character, so you're letting a lot of it slide and forgiving it because this Indiana Jones is back, he's on screen, Harrison Ford has mostly woken up for it.
Yeah.
Which was honestly, in seeing it in the theater, one of the biggest surprises for me is that he was not just sleepwalking through it.
Right.
That he genuinely brought some energy to it.
Mhm.
I don't know if it was in a good cause, ultimately, in what it was in service of, but he did come prepared to invest himself in it.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, by all accounts, he's one of the main people who really wanted to be there. He was gunning for this let's all make another Indiana Jones movie. Let's go. That was fun. Let's do it again.
Yeah, but he was doing
So,
it
yeah.
with lidded eyes and not quite.
Right.
Let's do another one.
Well, I mean, there's a big thing here. We discussed this with the Mummy. Brendan Fraser, they set him up as goofy. The tone of it is goofy, and Brendan Fraser's kind of goofy, in a lovable way.
Right.
And that works within the Mummy. Harrison Ford isn't goofy like that.
Mm-hmm.
No,
But they
he
give him
doesn't.
so many gags in the film.
Yeah.
And it's not my minute, so I don't want to jump ahead.
Go ahead.
but-
We won't
but-
tell them.
But later on, there's a certain scene in Slow Sand. What do they put? The dry
Yeah.
sand, whatever the heck the
Right.
quicksand moment is, where Mutt throws a snake as a rope, and Indy argues about, tell me it's a rope, not a snake. I can't. What are you doing? But you're dying.
Yeah.
This is a moment of crisis. You can't even, movie, please just commit to some kind of tone that I can invest in. You have him
Right.
throwing, and they're having an argument about it while they know the Russians are out there. And I grab that from the future and bring it back to here, going, it is a tone that is consistent throughout the film. That
Yeah.
is
Well,
just
yeah.
off.
And, well, to me, that's why it's easier, I think, to take in this film than it was in Last Crusade. Is in Last Crusade, we weren't expecting that, and we wanted
Yeah.
the old Indy. And now I think in this one, we're sort of right from the start. You're like, okay, this is going to be a Mummy type Indiana Jones. And I think for me, at least, it's easier to accept this kind of ridiculousness because of that.
I mean, I'm
Yeah,
sure
I can
you
see
must
that.
have discussed, trying to wring emotion after making Marcus Brody into another gag in this film.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, no, I
Yeah.
mean Marcus like died, and it's just like that scene at it's like the end of a Naked Gun. Like Ricardo Montalban falls off the thing and dies, then gets run over by the steamroller, and then gets marched over by a marching band. It's like, Marcus is dead, and they're still just,
It's like you either pay tribute to him as a character and an actor,
yeah,
or you can't have that beat right after the head falls into the lap,
right,
and
Yeah.
then Mutt laughing, which is what you wanted from it as a filmmaker. You wanted it. You put it in there as a gag. You can't
Yeah.
drag that back with Indiana, be looking somber.
right. I'm mourning Marcus, and his head
Yeah.
fell down. It was funny.
Hold on a moment, even though they're still coming after us, I gotta take a moment.
Yeah, right.
You're a jerk.
You know what? It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that because I don't think we entirely knew what to make of that moment. I didn't. Like, is he a
No.
Yeah, and that like, is he like I'm mourning Marcus, or is he like, he's just giving him the dad, not accepting.
But he
of
doesn't know.
the youngin.
But he's not. He
I
doesn't
don't
know. All he is just not even a kid. I mean, let's look at Mutt. Mutt is in his 20s. He's not a kid. It's not like
Yeah.
a short round age showed up and like hop on my bike, and, and they went off. He's
Yeah.
treating this as someone who could be one of his students, that
Yeah.
age,
Yeah.
who's on legal driving a vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that my take on that moment was them trying to drag it back in him being disappointed that this stranger is laughing at his good friend Marcus and what happened to the statue of him. This disrespect to the memory of Marcus Brody, which was the entirety of Last Crusade. Let's be fair.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Why is he getting upset now that the movie isn't treating Marcus fairly?
Yeah.
He had all Last Crusade to get upset.
So there's a lot of moments in this film where it seems like even Spielberg was of two minds, because like a beat like that is going to be through direction and editing.
Yeah.
How long you hold on that, what's your your take on how that's going to play out in your final edit in having that sort of Marcus memorial beat, which I would like it to be officially known as from now on. Is you can't. The film tries to have its cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
It wants to be a romp, but it also wants to have an emotional heft, an investment that you got out of Raiders.
Right.
Mhm.
You know what's funny? I wonder if that's even true. I'm not arguing with you at all. I'm just saying, it's, you look at, the four films, and you're just like, one of these things is not like the other, and the standout is Raiders of the Lost Ark. You're like, the other three movies have a lot more in common, with a lot more, of these, what we call goofitude, and I just, I sometimes
We call goofitude.
we too.
Also, is
I'm
that
with
a
you.
T-shirt that's available for fans of the show?
I guess since
But
you said it now, it is.
just,
Yeah.
it just makes me wonder, like, if maybe they always wanted, the directors always wanted it to be more of like a family fun romp thing, because 75% of the Raiders, of the Indiana Jones movies are that.
See, I would disagree with you about Temple of Doom. I think the last two are like that.
Okay.
I feel
All
like
right.
Temple of Doom had some ridiculous moments, but I don't feel
Yeah.
like it was ever.
Yeah,
Like
I think
a
it
romp.
reined in that tenor into some like really dark territory.
Mhm.
I think maybe that's why you notice it a lot more when
Yeah.
those
Mhm.
occasional moments
Mhm.
pop up, mainly involving Willie.
Right.
The stuff with Indy himself generally plays it a la Raiders.
Mhm.
That's true, actually. Yeah. Yeah. She's at one end of the table eating monkey brains, and he's at the other end trying to have a conversation about stuff.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like a serious
Yeah.
conversation. Not even, he's not even remarking or elevating the gag.
Mhm.
He basically does a glance like, oh, and just carries on with like the business of adults. And
Yeah.
Willie is cast as a childlike person in that film.
Mhm.
You know, her reactions are, you know, even below short rounds when it comes to how juvenile they are.
That's true.
But Indy maintains, you know, mission-oriented aspect throughout that film.
Yeah.
Throughout it that, you know, you see less of in Last Crusade.
Yeah.
And here is just abandoned.
Yeah.
The last two certainly land in a softer place.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so you know, that's a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The kid that says he's got a question about Hargrove's normative culture model.
Oh, yeah.
And I won't go into everything about what that is, but one of the things about the normative culture model is it was sort of an early school of archaeology where you collect artifacts just for the sake of collecting artifacts. And then Indy says, I mean, that's where he was before, and that was kind of Indy in the first 2 or 3 movies. And it's interesting now because he says, forget Hargrove, read V. Gordon Child, who is more about trying to understand culture in archaeology. Like it's more of an anthropological approach. And it's interesting because it's almost like Indy is growing as a person and what he's looking for. He's no longer just looking for the gold. He's actually looking for some meaning now, I think.
He does try and take that knife later, though.
True. you can't take it all out of him. Yeah. But one other thing that's interesting about V. Gordon Child is he sort of embraced the Marxist field of archaeology, the Marxist theory of archaeology. So this sort of feeds into our idea that Indy is completely turning red here.
You know, that's crazy. There's more and more references to that, aren't there? Like as the movie goes.
It's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to have like we have our Mutt watch and we need to have a Kami watch.
Yeah.
For Indy. Yeah.
Everybody set your Kami watch.
Yeah, I mean he's endorsing this Marxist view of archaeology. He's moving to Leipzig. They're all these questions.
He's
led
the double
Russians
agent
right to the he led the Soviets right to what they were looking for.
Yeah.
That was a quick turn.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what his plan was outside of actually lead them to it.
Yeah, that's what we're sort of leaning towards, I think.
He's crafty, that Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And he punched Mac, who at some point might be a CIA agent. We don't know.
Yeah.
You know, just punch possible CIA guys and not be a commie.
I mean, that's sort of the other issue with Mutt here in this scene is that, and just talking about how off kilter the whole film feels, and it goes back to Mac as well, is that there's really not a solid bounce for Indy as a character throughout this that you can actually get a hold of. Like in the first film, like when, you know, he hooked up with Sala, or when he's having his interactions with, you know, Marcus before he sets off on the journey, you actually, it's grounding the character more. You're getting a better sense of who Indiana Jones is at that point in time. Just based on his interactions with these grounded characters. When you have all of the characters around him in this film being dervishes, and, you know, you don't know what Mac's loyalties are at any one time or minute to minute. Mutt's a complete stranger to you. You know, even later when Marion shows up, you don't get a sense of who she is at that point in her life at all.
Yeah.
She's not fleshed out in the least.
She's Mary.
She's married. She's not even
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't get, you know, there's not even the villain bounce that you can have to define Indy. You don't have a strong villain for him to, you know, okay, well, what is his perspective on who this villain is and why that villain is wrong and how they're seeking the thing, or, you know, who they're seeking it for, like you have in the first 2 films.
Nothing's very strong or clear in this movie. I feel very confident saying that.
And I think that Marion thing will cause me to do for the first time. I've not done this in either 3 movies, but I'm going to ring Jerry's lazy bell. I feel
there
like
you go.
Wow.
the whole,
Dusted that off. There we
well,
go.
the whole Marion thing like is predicated on the idea that you know who she is already. And so if you come into this movie as you haven't seen an Indiana Jones movie, I think you're right, Ken. I don't think she works as a character. Like she just.
Well, I mean, if you come into this not knowing who Indiana Jones is, Indiana Jones doesn't work as a character.
Right.
I mean, if this is the first film you watch, then this thing is a disaster. Even more so than if you're invested in who this character is.
Yeah.
Because all of it is, it's that problem when people talk about prequel storytelling, or, a lot of a lot of criticisms that people might have of Force Awakens, or what people were trying to level at something like Rogue One, is that, or particularly so, if everything is a reference and an in-joke and a callback, rather than a story or a cohesive narrative or a well-developed character, then what are you actually invested in the film? Is it just a Wikipedia entry then? Did you notice?
Right.
And that's
Remember that guy with the hat and the whip?
Yeah.
There
Well, I
he
mean,
is.
that goes back to that Marcus moment where the camera actually takes a moment to linger on the nameplate, the dedication plate on the statue. If you're watching that for the first time, you're like, well, why the hell do I, what is,
right.
why am I looking? Okay. Why did the pace of the scene slow down enough for us to notice and take that in and read it and then speed right back up for a gag? Because it wanted the people that knew to have an emotional beat of going, oh, Marcus, and oh, Marcus. And then, oh,
Marcus.
Marcus.
And then Indy's upset about it because he's mourning Marcus.
Yeah. And again, if you don't know,
Maybe
then
he paid for that statue.
Yeah. Is it like, did Indy help sculpt that? Is that like his place where he eats lunch every day? Why does he care so much about that statue? So, but the film is loaded with all of those callback moments, right back to the beginning.
If Indiana Jones weren't, if this didn't have Indiana Jones in the title, I can't imagine people, caring or defending it or trying hard to get into it, or I don't know.
And it goes back to why I think that Last Crusade lays a lot of the poor groundwork for this. In that when you start off with that weird prequel catch-all in the first 15 minutes of the film, where you're going back to Indy's childhood, and you're going, why am I, what is all of this? Why am I invested in this? You only care about, again, reading that Wikipedia entry, watching that Wikipedia entry, if you know all the things that it's, so that's where he got his scar. Oh, okay. And that, his fear snakes. Okay. Oh, and his hat too.
Now I feel
better.
What a busy afternoon.
Yeah. Everything in his life happened on this day.
Look, you just said, what a busy afternoon. And I laughed out loud, except that's not funny.
No, that's really stupid.
That's the story.
Yeah. So that aspect of it, of, being so far up your own story, is a detriment. And it's, when the movies start navel gazing, and Last Crusade was that, and this just triples down on that.
Yeah.
It's not a good fundamental story, regardless of the fact that I don't think it's a good fundamental story anyway. Maybe there are some bones of something there, but everything in this feels like a sketch. And by sketch, I mean sort of both comedy sketch, but also just sketched out. Like it's just a loose outline of here are the beats that we're going to hit in a movie about Indian aliens.
Yeah. It's not a screenplay. I'll tell you that much.
And it seems like they came up with, what are we going to work on next? Should we actually lock down this plot and character? No. How about the jokes? Let's make sure the gags, we got some solid quips in there.
Fun.
Yeah, we need trailer moments. We can just work towards the trailer.
Yeah.
The movie will come later.
Right. Well, I have one more thing at the end of this minute.
Yeah,
just to get back to the minute, because we're talking about like what they're trying to do and what just is happening and stuff, and what are they crafting these things, or are they just sort of happening? Indy rides off on his motorcycle with his son, saying, "Get out of the library." And there's a beat where you see everybody in the library, and then it cuts to Indiana Jones with his nose in a book back in his house. As I honestly don't know if that is supposed to be like a gag.
I didn't even catch that, but you're right.
And I don't think it is. I think it's just
ironic
or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe he's trying to sabotage the kids.
Yeah. Well, he was just
maybe,
just
There's no
fired.
competition.
Yeah,
That's true. Yeah,
I mean,
Hey, get out of the library. Get out of school.
Yeah.
Take off your shoes.
Everyone leave this place. I'm going to bankrupt them.
That's hilarious. That's pretty good. I had one thing at the very end of this minute because we talk about the lighting and the shading, and I have no clue what time it is ever in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we finally do have a timestamp. Would anyone hazard to guess?
Oh.
Are you
Yes,
talking
in
about the clock in the
background-
library?
Yes, the clock in the library, no peeking. You can see what
Aw.
time it is.
I peeked
I
already, so I
peeked.
can't
Yeah, me
answer.
too.
Oh,
Oh.
okay.
But go ahead and tell the
Ken?
audience so they don't have to rewatch the movie.
It is. It's 10-4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it? Oh, I
I'd
thought
buy
maybe
that.
it was also. Could also be 10-10.
How does
Oh.
that work?
Wait, really?
Yeah, like both hands are pointing towards the 10.
No, they're
So
not.
it's 9:50.
I thought one was.
It looks
I'm
like
looking on a little screen.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm looking at-
actually,
yeah.
no. Well, I think you're right on the 10-10. I think it's a weird shading issue.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah,
it's-
because you
think
got
it's
the little
10 to-
circle on the
Oh.
end pointing
Oh,
towards
you
the
might be
4.
right. Well, that's even better. We don't know what time it is.
Time means nothing. No matter what, you have a clock and you can't tell.
Yeah.
I would assume, based that there's light outside, unless
Yeah.
we're in some far north territory, which we're not in the college, that
No, but
Is it
he-
the equinox?
he was just fired, probably during his first class of the morning, let's assume,
Mhm.
and that it's probably 10 till 10.
That's a busy morning. Like, I mean,
yeah,
that's
but you
like,
know
this-
nothing
yeah.
about
It's kind of
the
like that day he got his
lighting.
hat and his scar and his fear of snakes.
Yeah.
This does not
Yeah.
look like the morning. This looks like an autumn afternoon. Everything about it does.
Yeah.
That
it's
waitress
weird.
is serving people beers. It's not going to
Yeah.
do that like first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Is she?
Well,
I
they're
How
mean,
cool is
it
this?
is a
hard drinking
college
college
town.
town. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
It is a college town. Well, speaking of college town,
What? Yeah.
yes.
Who? What?
Yeah. So
yes.
the argument you're trying to make based on light is it's 9:50 at night. What is?
Yeah.
I don't. You know what? That's amazing, Pete. I think you're right.
Wow.
Anyway,
He's going to keep me up tonight.
yeah. Speaking of,
But you
If
said
there's-
something was speaking of, or some sort of coming through.
yeah.
or
Well,
some
yes.
sort of
Coming
beepity-beep or
through
some
the
sort of-
college town wire at a strange looking lighting. This just in from Professor
From
Christy Porter.
Susie
Um,
Skirt Porter.
From Susie Cute Skirt. Question for
Oh.
Pete.
Uh-oh.
Aw.
Does Hargrove's normative culture model apply to movie by minutes culture?
Yes.
Oh.
Like the sake of collecting just for collecting. And catalog. Like you catalog just to catalog.
So what are you collecting? Insights?
No, that's where the Hargrove
We wish.
model was wrong or was failed. Is it didn't really collect insights. It collected speculation and just
Maybe I
A
was
bunch of
pointing
stuff
out
to put
the
in a
empty
museum.
nature of our insights.
See?
good point.
We've talked for 3 hours. Where do we get? Nowhere.
Do I get an A? Do I pass? I really need to know.
Sure, why not?
I got to go have a beer before noon.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know what we should go get a beer for all of tomorrow and the rest of today, and then come back on Wednesday and we can tackle minute 38? Ken, can you come back for 38 on Wednesday?
I would absolutely love to.
Excellent. All right. We're going to do that. And everybody out there, please do the same. Go get yourself a beer at the sock hop or whatever they do in the 50s. And come back here on Wednesday for minute 38 of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull here on the Indiana Jones Minute.
Here's the beer breakfast.
Yeah.